want to welcome you all today. Thank you for joining us. I'm Rochelle Rose. I'm the National Director of Actors Programs. Before we're joined by our guests today, I want to let you know that the SAG-AFTRA Foundation is a non-profit organization that relies entirely on donations to provide emergency assistance and free educational programs to SAG-AFTRA artists. This conversation is made possible thanks to the generosity of our supporters. Over the past year, the foundation has given nearly $7 million in COVID relief to more than 7,000 performers. If you are a SAG-AFTRA artist and you need help, please ask. And if you can help, please give. Information can be found in the description below this video. Thank you for your support. Now, without further ado, it's an absolute treat today to welcome a very well-known casting team. Lisa Zagoria has worked on films and television shows from Twilight to La La Land. And Ms. Deborah Aquila was the 2020 Lifetime Achievement Award winner, honoree from the Casting Society of America. She has cast over 260 films and television shows. Welcome, Lisa and Deborah. Hi, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to, assume that everybody has seen this movie. It is so beautiful and sensitive and complex and universal and specific. I can't wait to jump into it with you. But first of all, I'm wondering, this was such an indie budget indie movie with very challenging requirements. So I'm wondering, when you first read the script, what did you spark to?
Debbie.
Well, just the sheer beauty of it, telling a story. First of all, I had really never understood the journey of a Coda. And when Sean gave us the script way back, before electricity, this has been, it's going to be a running theme today. Mm-hmm. But she wrote this a long, long time ago, and we've been working on this for a long time. And it was just beautiful. It evolved into something that, became a true family story, a journey of this young lady as she literally finds her voice. And in every way, metaphorically, you can imagine she finds her voice. For those of you that haven't seen it, I hope everybody has seen it, because it's just really what the doctor ordered for these times. And that's one of the things that we found so special about it. And then jumping into that, the world, as casting directors, we do immerse ourselves in the worlds in which we're presented when we do cast something. House of Sand and Fog introduced us to an entire world here of, theater that we didn't even know existed. I don't mean the theater generally. I mean specifically the theater that surrounds Farsi-speaking folks. And that's how we found Charest. So we do go deep into research, and that's what indeed we did. On Coda, Marley, of course, was the first one to jump on board, and we made a commitment in just being anticipatory. And one of the questions is, we made a commitment to be as authentic as possible with this story. And that was an interesting journey.
Right.
It is super authentic. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your research, if you don't mind, because I feel like in order for this to be so authentic on screen, there are several different elements, many different elements that you would have researched. The whole Gloucester, Massachusetts fisherman element, as well as deaf cultures. So I wonder if you can speak to sort of both of those elements in terms of what your research required in order to find these authentic performers for these roles.
Yeah.
Lisa, go for it.
Sure. Sean is from the area, so she had a wealth of knowledge to impart to us in the first place, not only with beginning with the world of the script, and then also speaking to her directly about what it was like for her. Like that, again, spoiler alert for those of you who haven't seen it, but there's this area where, they jump off a cliff that existed for her in her real life. So it was very important to her to find the location to match exactly the feel of everything that she felt growing up in that area. So as far as deaf culture, that's something that we tackled for a very long time. We, as Deb mentioned, the first script that we were presented with was back in 2017. So we had years of research on that during that time. And then again, when we picked it up a little bit later. So we did an open call sort of situation. We relied very, very heavily on Marley, who was, again, like Sean, a wealth of knowledge to have her to be able to, and she advocates in her day-to-day life, but also for this film so specifically, which was wonderful. Yeah. So
we did rely on it was definitely a team effort. Deaf West Theater is an organization that we've been going to support for decades. Since their doors opened, and I had the great pleasure and opportunity to see one of their productions on Broadway, which was sensational. I mean, stunning, actually. And I couldn't imagine what it took to get there. It was an enormous cast, and it was joyous, just joyous to experience. We relied heavily in the theater for finding these actors, and then word of mouth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also we investigated Gallaudet University, which was huge for us.
Yeah,
and auditioned actors and non-actors that attended school there.
And actors, being so supportive of each other. Hey, there's this thing that's casting. You have to submit, even if it was for the same role. So we found that so generous and so loving, in service to this wonderful story of this Coda.
Yeah, that's lovely to hear. And I want to maybe discuss that a little bit more when we start talking about Troy and Daniel. But first of all, I think I really want to dig in to finding Ruby. She's the central character. She sees everything. We see everything through her. It is this incredible coming of age and love story, as well as this sort of constant conflict between her dreams and sort of the independence of leaving the family who rely so heavily on her, and all that entails. But I think finding her must have been so difficult, because you needed somebody who could sing, somebody you believe is official,
triple threat,
someone who can sign, the Gloucester accent, which is so specific. And I heard Sean say that she did see many actors for this role. Obviously, you have found another superstar for this role. But can you talk to us about the journey of finding Ruby?
Yeah, we had a choice already. When, Lisa can attest to this. Again, just, Rochelle, sometimes the casting gods, they just
speak to you.
And they help you out. And it's like, you think you're going to go one way, and it's like, something's just stopping you. And because you've spoken to this Coda's, the characters' layers, and the necessity to have not only a fantastic actress who is going to explore all of those layers. What is it like? What is it like for a person who can hear and speak to leave home at 17 or 18 years old? It's already difficult. Now you've got a young lady that is the sole translator for a family. Family's livelihood depends on her service to them as a family unit. And yet she has this dream, because she has a voice. She has this song that she wants to share with the world and to them. I mean, that scene in the back of the truck. Oh, oh. I mean, and she wants to share that with her family and this thing that she can do. You know, Sean is just a tremendous director, writer. You know, especially that scene in the auditorium, you know, when they're sort of looking around, he asks, what are we going to have for dinner tonight? And they don't understand like what's happening around them until Marley sort of looks around and realizes she's got a very, very special person on her hands here. Not that she wasn't special before, but that she has a special talent that needs to be nurtured. So we were looking and looking and looking and looking and looking.
Hundreds
of tapes,
hundreds
and auditions, and then there was a lunch that I happened to have with an old friend who was visiting from England. Her name is Sue Latimer, and she's one of my oldest friends in the business. And she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "We're doing this thing, and I think we're close." You know, I said, "But you know, there's this character," and she just stopped the lunch. She put her fork down and said, don't do anything yet. I have this amazing person with whom I'm working, this young talent that we are working together now. And can you give me 24 hours? 24 hours to do a tape. Mm-hmm. I was like on the phone with Lisa on the way back. Lisa, hurry up. Let's investigate this.
Yeah.
But you take it from there.
Yeah. Oh, me. Yeah, so that's exactly right. Deb literally is calling. She was down the street at the lunch calling me, and we put it in motion. I mean, it was instantaneous. And then I think Amelia has told the story possibly a couple of times. She was sick, and we also needed to hear a song in the audition, and basically asked for more time. And Sue was like, "They don't have more time," and she was like, "I got to do it," and she did it, and she was so special and so tremendous that it was undeniable, really.
And then the journey began, right? Because within a week's time, she did another tape and she signed the entire thing.
Right.
Like, what?
Yeah.
She's just such a hard worker. She just dives into the deep end to do the work, to do the character work, to be as prepared as possible. But it's even beyond that. She had an understanding of the script. It's beyond her years, frankly. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's because of her life experience as well that she understands the journey of Ruby. It was just very exciting. It was very, very exciting to experience her talent.
She's phenomenal. She's the center pin. Without her, it doesn't work. And she is, I mean, you found...
And talk about a humanity that shines through. She's just one of the most, I can't say enough about her own humanity. She's just a lovely person as well. A lovely human being who is all about the work. And if you praise her, she gets really, really red. It's like, you know, that Tisch tosh, don't stop, you know, and runs away.
Sweet. I do want to ask, since you said you had already auditioned hundreds of girls before you found this perfect actress for the role, how did you break that down? Because now we've seen the film, can you share with us which scenes you were asking those girls to do in the auditions, and in your head, you know, what character traits or what was it that you thought you were looking for, whether or not you found it? Can you share those ideas?
You know, so, you know, you have an opportunity to, you know, the actor, the talent, the talented humans that put themselves on tape and really went for it. You know, it's a triple threat. So there were those that perhaps could share a song in a way that others couldn't, but that could share the story in the way that others couldn't. And then there were some who could do both, and there were some who struggled a bit more. And it's always, I experienced this on Primal Fear. And I often reference the journey with Edward to being lucky enough to experience him in this role of Aaron Roy. Spoiler alert. And sorry, it's 20 years old, so you haven't seen it by now. It's your problem. But it's, to have an actress go deep into backstory work, and to layer and layer and layer and say, okay, I've got this young lady that is, heartbroken because she's leaving her family. Okay, well, that's a pretty normal thing to happen to a teenager, or not, depending on your backstory. But this is more, there's a tug here. There's a true risk here, a true financial risk to her family that could actually bankrupt them if she's not there. And then what happens? So that's a tremendous amount of pressure on a young person. Right. She was translating menus when she was 6 years old.
Right.
So, those kinds of character details to actually investigate that thoroughly, emotionally, and authentically. That 6-year-old is very much alive in her, in every way. The resentful 6-year-old, the loving 6-year-old, the 6-year-old that just wants to go out and play but can't, the 6-year-old that wants to have friends but smells like fish, and the mean girls are after her. So,
So to end up at Ruby at 17 is like Deb was saying, incredibly layered, incredibly just has so many things, one on top of the other, that make her who she is, and make her incredibly unique as a person and as a character. Because you could have a character that has 2, maybe 3 of those things, but her being bullied and having to grow up way too fast, and then add on top of it this gift that she didn't even really know that she had until she knew. So, yeah,
amazing.
Yeah.
So before we get to the family, I want to focus on the love story, which is so precious. And I'm wondering if this was a global...
Which love story?
You're right.
There are so many.
It's so brilliant to see those parents on screen, to see deaf people who have a healthy sex life and money problems and just a real life. To just see all of that on screen is so beautiful. But I want to come to this Ferdia, Miles and Amelia. I'm wondering, was this a global search before the pandemic? Because I know Miles from Sing Street, Irish boy. So can you talk to us about finding Miles?
Yeah. So Miles was a very similar journey to Ruby. And we started at about halfway through the process where we, did the traditional breakdown release and everything like that. But obviously also he needed to be able to play an instrument and sing. So in that way, it was a global search as well. And that's how we came to Ferdia. He self-taped. I think he might've been working on Vikings at the time. And he did two tapes for us, and he just was very clearly had, I think his singing take came up first, and I remember being blown away by like the ease at which he had and the soulfulness behind his eyes. And I was like, Deb, come watch, it's Miles. And it
was,
yeah.
And it was spot on, Lisa.
Yeah. So it couldn't have been anybody other than him. I mean, but we did see, again, a lot of people and in the room in LA as well.
And in the room. And that was a joyful experience as well. Just to, when back in the day, you could actually see other humans in real life.
Yeah.
And there's just nothing like that, Rochelle. I miss the room so much.
Same.
The
best part of the job.
It breaks my heart that these actors are giving everything that they have, and they're doing it to a camera and hoping that somebody's going to watch. And of course we watch, but it's not the same as feeling the person in the room and experiencing their energy. And I feel like I'm in 2001: A Space Odyssey, and I'm communicating from a rocket. Right. It's very frustrating, and I hope that we're back soon with this, safely, of course. With this pandemic, we have to keep everybody safe first. And I know that they're back in the room in Europe sometimes. I'm hearing like little hopeful crickets, was, tweeting about this, that, oh, what a joy it is to be back in the room and, actually experiencing each other that way in a safe way.
Yeah. Well, hopefully soon. I know actors love that too, especially in a callback situation. Chemistry read. Was there a chemistry read before they were hired?
No.
Unusual.
Yeah.
Not for this. The
leap of faith.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it was just that they both were never in the right place at the right time. I think if they both, and we didn't even get to meet Amelia until very recently. Like, she has always been in the UK or shooting Lock and Key. And so, yeah, they never were anywhere together except for on set.
Except that by the time they left, this family is truly a family.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, amazing. That bedroom scene is so touching, where they're singing to each other. It's just, incredible.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay, so the family. I'm guessing that this started with Marley. I know Marley was friendly with the producers. She was in early on. She was an advisor to Sean. So and obviously she's absolutely incredible. She brings so much depth to this. The scene where they're eating and she says, if I was blind, would you be an art? I mean, we go on a journey with her too, from there to the bedroom scene with the dress. I mean, it's such a journey with Marley too. Can you talk about your working relationship with Marley and how she helped to advise? Perhaps she helped to, did she help to advise in the casting process?
Oh, she was a great help. She was a wonderful partner in every way. We also had fantastic interpreters that helped us in the room, that were also wonderful partners. And then you have Sean learning to sign, and it's like when I visit France, it doesn't usually go well. You know what I mean? Like, I try, but they're like, just stop.
Stop trying.
Just stop it.
Yeah.
And just speak English. Stop it. But it's she did her very, very, very best, and there was so much support for the how do I want to say it? There was so much support and encouragement for her to continue learning and communicating. And that was happening in real time in the room. So again, it was just this wonderful way to experience this film that were many different levels of communication that was going on, right? So much of the communication, for instance, with when we got into the family was physical. Actors sometimes, in my experience, especially in training, you sort of forget the physical.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like, oh, we're now in these rectangles, and we forget that we have a body, back in the day, we studied animal movement, right? I mean, what is the animal that's, right? Are you a panther? Are you a tiger? And all that play that we used to do in training, it's now static. But to experience that in the room, where there is so much physicality, because these actors were wanting to make sure that we understood them as well, that we could feel their emotionality as well. And of course we could. And we wanted to, do that to them too, give that back, right? So we found ourselves like hugging a lot at the end of a scene. Like, it wasn't weird or anything. It was just celebratory because it's such a physical experience.
I thought that was actually one of the things that struck me most about Troy Kotsur, who plays the father, Frank Rossi, is that it was such a physical comedy performance.
Right.
You realize, I almost feel like we're trained to watch people, exactly what you said, in these boxes, and almost the less they move, the better they are. And this was such a full body experience that it was a completely different experience as an audience to watch him speak and
emote.
Yes, it was really, and both of them together, the scene when they come downstairs with Miles and Amelia when they're in the lounge together. So much.
Or the dinner scene where, to get everybody's attention, they're banging on the table, and unabashedly, demanding attention, just like a family would, right? I mean, come to my house for Thanksgiving dinner and you'll not be able to hear a thing. So it's just like, how do you demand the attention that you need, especially as teenagers, right? And then they get mad at each other, and the next thing you know, they're one puts in, headphones and off she goes, and the other one's like, so it's just it's such a great example of the physicality that we need more of.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then, Sue, a little bit to talk about Leo Rossi, the brother, Daniel. I had seen him, I guess, only in Switched at Birth, but you talked about Broadway earlier, and I think he was in that Spring Awakening production on Broadway. Had you seen him? Did you already know his work?
We did, yeah.
Yeah.
And we were, again, there was just, Lisa, remind me, with 2 or 3 plethora sort of with Daniel? With
2 or 3, what did you say? Sorry.
So we had like 2 or 3 that we were really sort of honing in on.
Oh, yeah. In addition to Daniel. Yes. Yeah. That is correct. And Daniel was also one of those that was on set somewhere. So he was never in the room with us. He did have a meeting with Sean on Skype, not Zoom, because that was.
Oh, yes, the Skype machine. We totally forget about the Skype machine.
The Skype machine, right. So we turned on the Skype machine, and then Daniel popped up. And his charisma is what won him this role. The second he popped up on the Skype machine, you just saw that he like melts your heart, his eyes and his smile. And then he's an incredible actor on top of it, and has not been given the opportunities that he deserves. And now we really hope that he will. He's incredible and a great human.
Yeah, I really loved that scene where he's in the bar and you can tell he's trying.
Yes.
Again, just breaks your heart.
Yeah. So again, a very layered character,
all of them, they just did such great work. And that's just also a testament not only to their talent and their intelligent emotionality. Mm-hmm. Their EQ was off the charts, and they allowed that to happen. But also they've got a director she has a very strong hand, and she was an actress.
Yeah.
Right. So that speaks volumes.
Mm-hmm. So before we get to some of the locals casting and the more ensemble roles, which I do want to discuss, I want to talk about Siân and your relationship with Siân, working with her, because this is such an incredible portrayal. And I know she's talked about how touched she was to be embraced by this community and to tell this story, and was obviously incredibly sensitive in doing so. Can you just describe your working relationship or your day-to-day, or how you worked with Siân?
24/7.
Yeah. Again, for an indie movie, as this was, as you said, it is very boots on the ground for everyone involved. And of course, we're we are the earliest piece of that puzzle. So Siân was there, we were there, and we were working in conjunction, and she's just trusting and giving and
Collaborative.
very collaborative. And so it was,
there's no fear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, none at all. And she says what she means, and she means what she says, and she
wants to know what you say.
And we were both able collectively to put our thoughts out there without feeling like anyone's feelings were going to get hurt or any of that. She's a wonderful collaborator.
It's interesting you bring that up, Lisa. It's interesting, that casting directors, and I don't know that actors understand this all the time. We're partners. We're meant to be your partner, and we're there to make sure that you have everything you need, and that we're there rooting for you to succeed. We really are. We're your biggest champions. And when you're working with a director like Siân, where there is no fear, sometimes you're working in an atmosphere where perhaps an actor, a director doesn't really get actors or how to work with actors, and that becomes arduous. And then they make mistakes because they don't understand the actor's process, and they get frustrated, and it becomes a very negative experience. And if we have to be the advocate. We have to. I've had drag out arguments in my time. One of which I just couldn't proceed because we're also the sort of mama bears that we have to be to make sure that the actor is protected and that there's a safe environment at all costs, especially in the room. Now, of course, it's mitigated a little bit, but we still have to be those champions, even now more than ever, because it is distanced. But working with somebody like Siân Heder, it's really, you get it once every 20 years.
Yeah.
I think you can see that on the screen. I think you can see they shot this so quickly that all of the production heads, when you look at the music and the editing and the set design and the cinematography, I mean, it's all so exceptional for this budget. I keep coming back to budget. It just feels like she collected an incredible team and trusted them all to do their best.
She did, and she wasn't going to give up. I mean, she willed this onto the screen.
For sure. Yeah.
This is Siân.
Absolutely.
Siân and Patrick.
Right.
Yeah.
This was her baby.
You've worked with Patrick for a very long time.
Yeah.
Say how do you pronounce his last name? Waxberger?
Waxberger.
Waxberger, thank you. And so I guess he was at Lionsgate for a very long time, and then this was his.
Well, he started, some at Lionsgate, and then, yeah.
Before we move on still, can you talk to us about, it's important for you to have these relationships as a casting director with producers who hire you. So can you talk maybe a little bit about how over your career, obviously now you're at Paramount, you have a staff position there, but over your career, can you talk about how you have developed those relationships with producers who you have worked with again and again and again?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
I'm just thinking that, you have repeatedly worked. I think once you've created relationships with people that you have worked with, obviously they've enjoyed your work because they've invited you to cast their movies again.
Sure.
And again.
I guess what I'm trying to figure out how to answer is sometimes there's a wonderful trust, partnership, chemistry, shorthand. Sometimes that happens with directors. I mean, Lucy, you can speak to this as well. I mean, but this is my 4th decade coming up on doing this. And I have worked with a lot of directors because over and over again, because there is that shorthand. It was a good experience, even if it was a contentious one, perhaps, because so casting's like the hub of a wheel, right? With many spokes. And one of the most important ones is our relationship to the director, to the producer, to the creative team, to the writer, and to the actors. with whom we interact in the room. And then there's the other elements as well that sometimes we interact with and sometimes we don't, but we have in the past. It's either a studio and a network and those folks there, and there's agents and reps, there's managers, there's lawyers, it's a lot to manage.
Yeah.
Right. A lot. And then you have to keep some sort of integrity to the casting process. You have to keep some sort of clarity so that the creative process is not corrupted by any of that. Right. That's a learned experience. And that
I love that. I love that analogy. That's a great, I don't think I've ever heard you say that before, but to offer another analogy, we're like the juggler, like the clown or whatever, and you just keep all the ball, you try and keep all the balls in the air. But to your question and Deb's point, this entire business is built on relationships. That's the way that it is. And that includes for actors as well. There are actors that we see repeatedly because we know how great they are, because we know that they're going to deliver exactly what the director wants. And that does not mean that they are the lead of the movie. It means that they can be there and know exactly what they're doing. And so our job is to cultivate those relationships with a producer, with the director, and then with the talent agents as well. So we're sort of like the conduit between all of the pieces of making. And then to have the ability to discover, new routes to different kinds of talent, right? So that means seeing a lot of theater. That means seeing, there's so much, like when Bo Burnham says, I'm creating content on Inside, but, he's not wrong. And I know he was doing it in a sort of ironic way, almost resentful of it, right. Of even the term content. We have to see everything. We have to see everything. And it's impossible, by the way. So that's why you rely on a team or, trusted folks, like Lisa and I have worked together long time. And the folks that I have with me now and the team that I have now, we tend to split things up, who's the music person, but we did that at Aquila Wood for 24 years, right? I mean, somebody that's watches television constantly, somebody that, is an expert in international film, right? Who's on the AMPAS committee this year for this thing. And, right. Who's going to New York twice a year to go see theater?
That's usually me. Yeah. Right? Who's at the theater every other night here in Los Angeles? That's usually me. So, we all had our almost categories, right? And they intersected and we shared information because it is impossible to cover everything.
Totally. And now with social media and the content that you speak of, TikTok and Instagram and stories and whatever, the possibilities are truly endless.
Yeah.
When I started in this, there was none of that. Like we were getting audition tapes on VHS. So it has just from then to now has exploded in a crazy way. And there are, and especially studios and networks and whatever, they want to know how many followers people have, or who funnily ran into a wall, and can that person act? Basically that's something that I dealt with recently. So yeah.
So it's fresh on your mind.
Yeah.
And we have to deal with a lot of folks that think they know everything about actors and they know nothing. And that drives me off a ledge sometimes. They don't understand the actor's process. They don't understand, it's not that they're mean-spirited people. They're not. They just are frustrated because, so are you going to get mad at a writer because they have a process to write? You know what I mean? Sometimes you do, I guess. But, it's also important that we try to negotiate that, and make folks understand what an actor's day is like. Come on,
Right.
How many times, how many times do you hear no in a week's period? That messes with you.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it makes you question your talent. It makes you question your choices, your existence. Right.
Yeah.
But that has to be factored in, and there's got to be an inherent empathy, which in this world today we are freaking lacking. I'll tell you that for free. And the more you try to ring that bell, I think the better for everybody. Yeah, you have to create a safe space so that these artists can actually shine, and that's our job.
Well, thank you for creating that space.
Well, we try. I mean, now it's a space in my attic, but
this is the space you're looking at it.
Yeah, right. There it is, all blurred. And
I want to talk to you about some of the other characters who create this authentic fabric that we've discussed. The fishermen like Tony and Gio, the doctors. So, and I'm not sure where the line is between locals casting. So maybe you can just share, let's start with the fishermen and Tony and Gio and those guys. Are they Gloucester, Massachusetts guys? Are they New Yorkers?
You've reached the point where Angela Perry's office took over, and they were incredible. Great, again, also great collaborators, and they really did build out the world in the way that.
She's fantastic.
So good. I would work with her again and again.
Our whole team.
Totally, they're great.
Sending you tapes every day on your.
Yeah, of course, they're out there pounding the pavement. We had to do the same thing on Stronger. Mm-hmm. Our partners locally, look, back in the day, all right, again,
here we go. Yeah.
Because I'm 100 is, back in the day, I went to every city on Primal Fear, right? I went to so many cities on Primal Fear, and I had certain local casting directors that I relied on because you couldn't get to every city. And 2 other countries that we were exploring as well. And we, you had to wait for the, DHL to deliver the videotapes because there wasn't any of this.
Right.
It's global now, so it's in an instant, right? But imagine you had to wait like a week for a tape to arrive, and the process
in the mail, and then putting it
in the mail, right? DHL. Where's the DHL? It's coming.
Yeah.
FedEx. We became very close friends with our FedEx people, and but we rely very, very heavily on local CDs all over the country and the world now, because there aren't the budgets, first of all, for us to travel ourselves. There's not the time, especially if you have a large cast, and it doesn't make any financial sense. And these folks know their respective territories better than we would ever know. And so, you'll see it. Pay attention to the location casting folks. They're very important. The location talent reps, they're very important people, creatively to the process.
Yeah, and you're right. They did an amazing job. I want to quickly ask, because I've noticed, I think one of the actors in the chat might have been in the choir, and I heard that actually the kids that make up the school choir, some of them actually came from Berkeley, and then it was like, oh, they're all too good, we need to get some other kids. So can you just tell us a little bit about assembling the choir?
Well, I mean, that was local.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of auditioning and getting what you need, and and then, of course, Eugenio walks in the room. Oh, that man. Oh, talk about a wonderful human being and a talent. When he said yes to doing the choir teacher, I nearly fell to pieces, I have to tell you.
Yeah. And we waited a long time to find.
We waited so long, and we just weren't going to take no for an answer. No, you're so busy. We know. We don't read the script.
There was such an availability issue, and we just, like Deb, just every 3 times a week, 3 out of 5 days a week, we would call and be like, is he available now? Because we just knew that he was the right person for this role for a plethora of reasons. But he really did make it sing.
Yeah. And it's just fascinating, because I think he has millions of followers, particularly in Latin America, but all over the world, who are so used to he's the most famous comedian in South America. So to see him in this role, so much heart, sort of the art teacher of the arts that everybody fantasizes about having, or hopefully had at some point.
Rochelle, he had to see himself in this role first.
Right.
And that was the problem.
Wow. And
it was like, Eugenio.
Right. And we knew.
Please.
Yeah.
This is you. Stop.
Well,
and that, again, here it is, speaks to the dilemma of the artist, right? Even somebody, it just never stops. Can I do this? Lady Gaga has a fantastic interview in the New York Times yesterday. I think it was last night I read it, where she talks about her creating her character for, and why she feels like she said she feels like she's gotten a lot of sensational news reports because she went all, sort of methody. That triggers me in ways I can't even tell you, because there's a whole other reason for that. But it's like, no, she was in character for most of the time, and it's the way she explains it. It wasn't that she just jumped off the Strasbergian roof. She said it very, very simply. She said, if I'm a jazz singer, right, and I don't usually sing rock and roll, or I don't usually sing another genre, you betcha I'm going to be immersed in that for 24/7 until I feel comfortable doing it. And she was describing her journey to playing this woman who had a specific Italian accent, and had a specific backstory choice. And she just did that. And that was, Eugenio had to sort of allow himself to emerge in this role at his own pace. And he did, with Sean's help and with the help of a wonderful, the support system around him.
And again, just, with Troy, who I know many people have probably seen at Deaf West, and Marley, and Eugenio, it's just like all the stars aligned. It really is just this perfect cast. I'm glad you mentioned Lady Gaga's interview in the New York Times, because I also thought it was very interesting. And one of the questions for me that comes out of that is, a lot of the people who are here with us on the live today, they're auditioning for co-stars and guest stars. And one of the things that strikes me about the privilege of being a lead is the luxury of time to immerse yourself in the requirements of the character, of the role. And lots of people who are coming in for guest stars and co-stars may only have the weekend or 24 hours to bring it. So can you talk to us? I don't know if
I can actually.
Yeah, about that exercise of being the character in 24 hours time.
That's with my other hat.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, from my own training, right? There are ways to do that, and to do it very, very authentically and very quickly. And that's knowing the right questions to ask to immerse yourself inside of it, even if you don't have a script. There are clues. And every side you get keywords that can trigger you emotionally, so that you can actually, or experientially, so that you can turn a fact into experience.
Yeah.
We don't ever want to act facts. Want to experience emotions. And that's what you have to look for. I don't care if you're playing a robot, because robots have feelings too.
Mm-hmm. Or if it's just one line, that it still matters, it's still important, and it's still, there is, that person has a character that is able to be played, that you can create that backstory, even like Deb said, if you don't even receive a script, which happens a lot nowadays, when you just get the sides, but you should be able to, even with minimal time.
You have a great resource, and it's called the internet. Or back in the day, the World Wide Web. I had a young person recently say to me, "Is that what that means, www?" And I was like, okay, I'm done. leaving.
How old was this person?
And yeah, I'm not going to reveal it, but I was just like, see you later. Bye, done. But, you know, so yeah, you know, even if you can't get a script, there's always a little tidbit online.
Yeah.
Tiny bit of information. Or if you don't have that, who are the writers, who are the showrunners, who are the authors? Is there source material? And if there is, what's the book about? And I know I have 12 hours to prepare this. It's doable.
Yeah. Just talking about source material, did either of you watch the French film that was the source material for this before you got started? And
yeah, of course.
What do you think? What did you take from that? Because this is a very different film because it's so specific to Gloucester. So what came with you from that film?
You know, there are universalities that we deal with, right? If you look at thematics, and I don't know that everybody thinks this way, but there are themes in everything that we do in our lives, I think. And this particular, the theme for me in both strands, they were love stories. They were love stories between a mother and a daughter, a love story between a father and a daughter, love story between the parents, love story between a brother and a sister, and they continue to break each other's hearts. These are universal things. Those things don't change.
Right.
They are what we are. These are the fabric of our lives, right? So if you can see that universality in pretty much every story that's told, even Shakespeare becomes easy. Yeah. I had the great fortune of seeing the Alameda Theater's Macbeth 3 Saturdays ago, and I still can't shake it. It was so extraordinary. I just cannot get over that production, that director, those actors. And I've seen a lot of Macbeth, but I can't. And what was it? It was reductive in a way that spoke to the universality of greed, how power will corrupt, how love can provoke, right? All these beautiful universal themes that were this director shone a light on them in a way that spoke to today.
And thank you for being such a champion of local theatre. I mean, it's not very often that we speak to legendary casting directors who talk about something they just saw at the Alameda Theatre. So thank you. I know everybody on the chat is just, thank you for being such a fan of live local theatre. I see a question in the chat from a member, Crystal Rivers, who's asking specifically about performers with disabilities and whether or not you're able to audition performers with disabilities for smaller, normal roles. Is that something you're able to do?
Yes, absolutely. Especially now, we've been talking about this a lot recently with Coda, with other films that showcase disability representation across a lot of different platforms. And so now there is such a call for it. And right now, anything can be anything. And we're very happy that is what is going on. And it just gives us more people to see and more talent. And then also it's something for the audience to be able to see that they haven't before. And that's exciting. I think in all of the research and articles and everything that we've been reading, it goes both ways. Like, we're excited about it. And then conversely, so is the audience consuming the material. They're like, yes, please give us more. So happy to be able to service that.
Yay, be that conduit. So I'm afraid we do have one other question in the chat, which I'm going to ask. It's going to be our last question because we've just already spent so much time with you, and thank you ladies both for your time. Last question is from Johnny Walsh, or Joni, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing. who's just asking if you have any tips for people self-taping to get out of their heads, not to be worrying about the lighting and the camera and and just to get out of their heads and into character. And
so I know Trinity well. I know the Lear training very well, and huge fan of everything that's all of this. Concentrate on the work. Make sure we can hear you, see you, that your dogs are not barking like mine are during the taping, because that's distracting. But I'm babysitting today and I don't have anywhere for them. So make sure we can hear you, see you. Make sure you have a fantastic reader if you can. Someone that's not going to pull focus, but someone that's also going to be supportive to you in the work, in the way that, you know, you're sort of interacting, a partner to you if possible. And then just let it go.
Yeah.
Just let it go.
Right. That's so Rochelle said, how can you not be in your head about it? And the easiest thing is what Deb said, just let it go. Back to the thing before, we are your champions. We are your advocates. So just know that we're in your corner, and that should, you know, give you a little boost in that way, but also like, we're here for you. We're watching the tapes, and do it as many times as you need to without doing it too many times. Because if you are in your head about it and you've done the tape 100 times and you don't know, just feel it. When you do the right performance, you'll know it, and don't do another take after that. Just be confident and send it, and we'll see it.
And if we have notes, you'll get those notes, believe me.
Yep.
You know, in a positive way. I see that we have my little whiz is on this chat. Hi, little whiz. But yeah, so Crystal has an acting class. Go. Good. This has been so much fun.
Yes, thank you both so much for being so generous with your time and just amazing advice. Thank you, and congratulations. This is such a beautiful movie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will let Sean know, and this has been really lovely. And see you tomorrow, pieces. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.